up
say,
there, and I had to go
take
out.
my bike for a
I
ride
had
on
to
the
do
car.
this, I had to do that. I didn't want to do it anymore. So,
Ways to go for
Mostly
a
I
boat,
just
too.
go from
Yeah.
home. I watch the wind. I'll ride it.
Because they're always complaining about how it's hot. I'm like, trade me. I would rather be warm. Because then, like, we should. Because I hate having to, like, bundle up in the summer to come to the office. I would rather. Yeah, like, I want to wear my formal tank tops that I bought.
I'm Lance. I'm Carl. Nice to meet you. Yeah, pleasure.
Outside
Carl
with,
from New
you know,
Carlisle.
Luke, and it's-
BJ?
That's real money.
Hi, Abby.
Recording in
It's a big
progress.
road 7
What'd you have
days,
in it?
and,
Started?
They
No.
have campgrounds and everything. so
Where's my sheet? Here it is, right here.
pretty wild.
All right, everybody, the time is 1:30, and I hereby call the August 10th, 2022 Area Board of Zoning and Appeals to order. We have 7 members present today on a 7-member board. This meeting is held in person and virtually on the 4th floor of the council chambers of the County City Building with a Zoom video and phone teleconferencing option available as posted on the website sjcindiana.com/agenda sender. Regarding public comment, we will first ask for any public comment from those sitting in the chambers, then call on the members of the public to attend remotely. If a member of the public attends remotely, wishes to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting, they should indicate this by using the raise hand function in Zoom and/or by the messaging the host in the chat function. Please clearly state your name and address for the record. We ask the board members to state their name when making a motion in a second. Lastly, please silence your cell phones so they do not disturb the meeting. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Hawley?
Present.
Mr. Moffett?
Here.
Mr. Ritzma?
Here.
Mr. Roush?
Here.
Mr. Schaefer?
Here.
Mr. Vellman?
Here.
Mr. Tavernier?
Here. Okay, we have petition number 1, please.
Location 68936 Beach Road, an unaddressed 2± acre parcel at the northeast corner of Shively Road and Beach Road, as tabled. Owner Lehman Farms LP, requested actions. Variance number 1, section 154.092 sub D, to allow a front yard setback of 0 foot where a minimum of 35 feet is required for an existing house constructed 35 feet from the center line of the road, and variance number 2 from section 154.092 sub A to allow a lot area of 1 acre where a minimum of 20 acres is required. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
Shelley, could you please click onto the screen? All right, this property was tabled from last month because we didn't have a representative on Zoom or present on behalf of the petitioner. This petition is to allow an existing single-family dwelling to be separated from 39 acres of cultivated farmland. It will not create an additional buildable lot in the agricultural district than what would be permitted by right. This is the property proposed to be split off and the existing home. And the site plan showing the proposed lot, which is requested to be split off from the 39 acres of tilled farmland. In looking at the Indiana Code criteria for the granting of a developmental variance, the approval would not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or welfare. The front setback is for an existing house that is non-conforming and is only required because additional right-of-way must be dedicated as a result of the subdivision, and the lot area variance would not allow the possibility for an additional residential lot in the agricultural district. The use and value of the area would not be affected in a substantially adverse manner, as the properties will continue to be used in the same manner. And strict application to the terms of the chapter would result in a practical difficulty in the use of the property, because it would prohibit the subdivision from occurring And as I mentioned previously, the subdivision as proposed does not create an additional buildable lot beyond what would be allowed in the agricultural district. Staff recommends approval of both variances.
Okay. You guys got any questions?
I'm just, the proposal says 2 plus or minus acre parcel, which I get that it's not exact, but on the sheet here that shows the actual lot, it shows 1.13 acres. Is that because they're not certain where the lines will ultimately end up, or where they're gonna get it all staked off, or why I know 2 plus or minus is not exact, but they put 1.13 on this sheet, so.
I would ask the petitioner to answer that, but that could be a result of the additional right-of-way that's being dedicated.
Okay, you guys got any more questions?
Abby, if I may, you talk about the sentence that said it won't create the possibility of an additional buildable lot in the agricultural beyond what would be permitted by right. There's plenty of road frontage, and it's over 20 acres, so it would be a buildable lot, wouldn't it?
Well, if you're starting with 40 acres, then you have 2 buildable lots. If you take 1 or 2 acres out of it, then you're left with 38 or 39 acres.
But to clarify, it's not going to be an outlot.
Correct.
So someone could build on the 39 acres.
Correct.
Okay.
You're going to see a petition later on where we have recommended that we create an outlot, because we're looking at how many lots can you eke out of the acreage that's left. So with this particular property at 40 acres, they have 2 buildable lots, 20 acres. Whereas when they take out 1 to 2 acres, they're splitting off the house, and then they have, let's say, 38 acres remaining. 38 acres doesn't get you to 2 buildable lots. 38 acres gets you to 1 buildable lot. So they're not creating additional buildable lots. Now, if we had, say, a 45-acre parcel, and we give a variance for lot area for 2 acres, and then we're left with a 43-acre parcel, well, then we have created the possibility for an additional lot.
But you could take the 38 acres, put another house on it, divide off 10, and then you'd have another buildable lot.
You wouldn't be able to divide off 10 unless it meets the zoning ordinance requirements for the agricultural exception. It is 20 acres.
Oh, okay, so you couldn't make a mini out of that house that you just built?
Not without coming to you, gentlemen,
Right,
for approval.
Right, we could see it again.
We could see it again and
Just,
again
I
and
just
again.
wanted that clarification, that's cool.
Stop
Yep.
giving people ideas.
All right, you guys done? Good?
We're done.
Okay. You got any more questions? No, I do not. All right. Name and address, please, and you got 10 minutes.
Kyle Lehman, 68026 Beach Road, Napanee, Indiana, 46550.
Do you want to talk about the petition at all?
I'm buying the house from my grandparents who are now deceased. It's within a trust, so I'll be buying it for my dad and his brother and sister. Been in the family for 60 or so years, so, yeah.
Okay.
Just requesting for those variances to be approved, and we can move forward then
All right.
onto the planning committee, right? Would that be the next step after this?
Yeah, it will need to go through the plat committee for approval.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, to answer the gentleman's question, we had put plus or minus 2 before the surveyor came in there. When they staked everything off and got the actual lot, that's where the 1.13 comes into.
Okay, yeah, because lot 1 is 1.13, but it's a 1.56 acre tract of land, which I would include would be the right-of-way, so it's close.
Okay,
Perfect, thank you.
yep.
Anybody else got any questions? No? Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you. Do I need to stick around for anything after this, or I'll be getting a notification for the plat committee, or when that
So
happens?
I'd stick
next
around
month?
until the end of your variance hearing, and then you can take off
Okay.
as soon as we're done with
Never been
that.
through it before, so just making sure.
Okay. All right, I will now open it up to the public. Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. None? Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Is there anybody who would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. The public portion is now closed. Anybody got any last questions? Or I'll take a motion.
Abby, would you know, I guess I should have asked him this question. The remaining land there, is that all tillable and in crops? Yes. Okay. Thanks, Abby.
If you have
Yeah.
questions for the petitioner can please approach the podium to answer on the recording.
Thank you.
You good? Okay. All right.
Donnie Ritzma, I'll make a motion to approve the variances as requested.
I'll second that. Bob Hawley?
Okay, motion and a second. Shelley?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Veldman?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, after careful consideration, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals grants your variances and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you.
And you may leave.
Petition number 2.
Location 20363 Ozone Boulevard. Owner Mark and Lindy Roberts. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.070, sub C 1A1, to allow a height of 24 feet where a maximum height of 22 feet is allowed for a new pole barn. Zoning R Single Family District, County.
Shelley, could you click onto the PowerPoint? Thank you. Hi, this is Kylie Abrams, Area Plan Commission staff. Staff recommends approval of the variance. The petitioner is proposing to construct a 40-foot by 64-foot accessory pole barn on their 1.77-acre property to store a Class A motorhome and other personal property. As you can see, the property is located at the end of a street that dead ends at the US 31 bypass, and the property is largely surrounded by forest. This is the front of the home. This is where the proposed pole barn would be located, just south of that shed, as you can see. Looking east, west. These are the provided site plans from the petitioner. The proposed pole barn will meet all other development standards aside from the maximum height. It will have a driveway installed leading to it and will have gas and electricity run to the pole barn. Here are provided rough elevations for the building, looking south, north, and west, showing the garage doors and side door. On to the criteria. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Approval will not be injurious. General welfare can only be improved by the additional storage that the petitioner intends to keep public property safely and privately stored in and out of the petitioner's open yard. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The area adjacent to the property will likely not be affected. Although this is the largest accessory structure in the immediate area, the petitioner's larger lot size compared to the other lots in the neighborhood and the fact that it will meet all other development standards for the district should result in little impact on the neighborhood. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Strict application of the terms of this chapter would prevent the petitioner from safely storing their Class A motorhome out of lines of sight for the neighborhood, and it would prevent future violation of the zoning ordinance. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Anybody got questions?
When are we gonna start looking at this? This is, multiple times we've had this issue, and it appears a standard building practice is a 412 roof, and to maintain a 16-foot clearance, it's gonna require something larger than 22 foot for Height.
That's a great question and something that your chair brought to our attention in regards not to this specific petition, but the general ordinance needing to be updated prior to the meeting.
I mean, could it be that it's a sliding scale over a certain square footage? It could be 22. If it's a bigger square footage, if it's allowed, it could be 24, 26. Could you have something like that so it's easier to utilize?
That's something we can look into, and I'd look to you all for input.
He's the builder.
Yes.
That was a comment I had on this.
Good. All right, nobody else? Petitioner present? Name and address, please, and you got 10 minutes.
Mark Roberts, 20363 Ozone Street, South Bend, Indiana, 46614. I have nothing to say, just other than we'd like to build the building there and add it to the neighborhood. Any questions that you have?
How long have you owned the property?
We purchased it, I believe, back in April of this year. And we bought it specifically because of the acreage that was there and also the location that, that we did want to store our motorhome close to our house so that we had space for it. And that is one of the leading reasons that we bought that property.
Do you already own, or are you done, Bob? Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you already own the motorhome? Or is
Yes,
this
we
some-
do. We previously lived on the north side of Elkhart, Indiana, and the RV is stored on the east side of Elkhart, Indiana, almost to County Road 17. So it's about 35, 40 minutes away with restricted times that I can get in to get to it, get it out, get it back in. So that's why we like it there at the house.
And so you're gonna have gas and electric to it, I assume, to keep it temperature controlled and,
Yes,
okay, but no sewer, no,
we don't plan on that.
okay. I agree with you, Joe. Anybody else got anything?
You plan on starting that as soon as possible?
The driveway would probably be within a couple of weeks, and then the builder, I believe he's out till September, October.
Thank you.
More questions? Nope, all right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Now we can open this up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Darla Teese. I also live on Ozone Street, which is actually, has a turn in it, so I live on the part of it that runs north to south. He lives on the portion that runs east to west. They have a nice big lot, they have a very nice home, and they take care of their things very nicely in the neighborhood. It's a small neighborhood with only about 33 houses, and we're kind of a suburb of the city, south of the Church of God, off of Highway, I don't know the highway name. But I saw the picture that you had there, and it had 2 garage doors in it, one big one and one small one, and I wasn't sure. I thought it was just for, yes, there, like a big door and a smaller door. And I'm thinking, will you be tearing down your little shed that you have off to the side?
So, hold on a second, sir. All right.
Come,
No, ma'am.
oh, sorry.
So are you speaking in favor or against this petition?
I'm just curious as to what it is. My concern is not his structure. My concern is I have another neighbor who was at one time prevented from building a large structure. He is my next door neighbor, so to speak, with some vacant lots in between. But He has been prevented in the past from building a very large structure, and I am thankful for that particular thing. I am not against this property being built. I'm just concerned that if this is okayed, then he's going to try and reestablish his thing, and he deals in cars and trucks and fills up the neighborhood, his yard with vehicles. His wife
Okay.
keeps
can-
him from being too much, but I'm worried when this one gets passed that he won't get a variance, and
All
I
right,
don't
so
know, I'm
what
just
this,
concerned.
what this portion of this is right now is to speak for or against.
And it does include asking questions.
Right, and so I guess what I was getting ready to is, I was getting ready to ask, do you have specific questions that about this petition? And then, because later on down the line, he'll have a chance to give a rebuttal, and then we'll
Okay.
ask the questions that you're asking.
All right. I guess I was surprised to hear that it's 2 car doors wide, and it will be a big structure. So is that the plan, to have a big door to accommodate his beautiful mobile home, and also one to accommodate a truck as well on the side? It'll be a very large pole barn. But I'm not against that, because they really do. I just am surprised at the size.
Okay, so your main question is what is it gonna house, and what is the reason for 2 garage doors, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
I also asked if he was gonna tear down the back shed.
oh, that's right.
thank you.
No, thank you.
Time to go?
All right. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor against this petition, or for this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none, is there any on Zoom?
No.
Seeing none, is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none, any on Zoom? No, seeing none. Public portion is now closed. Sir, if you would like to answer these couple questions that they have, I actually have one question that came up when we were talking. We got 5 minutes.
Okay.
5 minutes. I was holding my pen.
The second door, 10-foot by 10-foot door, would be for my personal truck.
Bless you.
If you scroll back to the pictures of the house in the front, you'll notice that there's a Chevy truck that sits outside the garage. Once my wife pulls into the garage and parks, there's no way I can get my truck in and out or out. So my truck would sit inside that pole building in that 10-foot door. That's what that would be used for, plus also gaining access in and out. But the larger door would be only for the motorhome.
Does that truck pull the motor home, or
Does that truck be pulled by the
does your
motorhome?
truck pull that, I'll call it a motor home or a trailer or whatever?
The motorhome is a Class A motorhome. It's a 38-foot diesel pusher
Oh, it has
motorhome.
its own, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep, it pushes itself down the highway.
And then the other question was about the shed.
If you scroll back to the diagram, you can see the shed in the backyard there. The shed is 16 by 18. We left it there because the county counts it as 288 square feet of space that we could use for auxiliary buildings. And our thought was not to tear it down because it hadn't been there that long. It's a very nice shed. We could leave all of our lawn care equipment in it, everything else in that building. We don't plan on tearing it down, but if we did, we would look to add to the back side of the building approximately another 8 feet, which would take up the storage that we lost for that building, which would still be in our 1.5 footprint of our home.
Okay.
So basically, with the new construction, the pole barn, leaving the shed as is, everything that you have would be under roof, so to speak.
Correct. Yes, and it would
Thank
be,
you.
it would be under the 1.5 variance.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you.
Guys got any questions? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion, Bob Hawley, that we approve the request for the property at 20363 Ozone Boulevard.
Second, Lance Roush.
Motion and a second. Shelley?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Veldman?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thanks, sir. Number 3.
Location, 25800 Kern Road. Owner, Gary and Evelyn Weldy. Requested action, 3 variances. Number 1, from section 154.092 sub D to allow a side east yard setback of 8 foot where a minimum of 30 feet is required. Variance 2, from section 154.092 sub D to allow a side west yard setback of 16 feet where a minimum of 30 feet is required. In variance number 3, from section 154.092 sub D to allow a rear south yard setback of 12 feet where a minimum of 30 feet is required for a new pole barn. Zoning, A agricultural district, county district.
This is Kylie Abrams again, Area Plan Commission staff. Staff is recommending approval of the variances. The subject property is split zoned, half R single family district and half A agricultural district, as you can see on this zoning map. The petitioner is proposing to construct a 40-foot by 64-foot accessory pole barn in the southwestern area of the property that's zoned A agricultural. As you can see here, this is showing where the proposed pole barn would be located towards the rear of the property. Looking east, looking west. This is a photo of the neighbor across from Kern Road to the north of the property, demonstrating that while these are 2 separate accessory structures here, accessory structures totaling a large amount of square footage is not uncommon for this rural area. This is the provided site plan from the petitioner. On to the criteria. Number 1, the approval would not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Approval would not be injurious in this case. The requested setbacks are consistent with what is required for the R single-family district, where most of the main dwelling is located. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Approval of the variances would not affect adjacent properties in an adverse manner. The project will conform to the current use of the petitioner's property and all of the surrounding properties, and a 12-foot rear setback should be sufficient to prevent any adverse impact from the small farm immediately to the south of this parcel. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. The strict application of the terms would severely limit any buildable area for the accessory structures on the property. As you can see, there is limited space in the residentially zoned area, and the width of the agriculturally zoned area is only 88 feet. Approval of the requested setbacks would be consistent with what would be required normally if the entire property was zoned R single family. And I'll take any questions.
Okay. Well, some of your first memory, is there no height restriction in ag?
No.
It's the same pole building as the previous one, but they know the request for that, so.
Mm-hmm.
That's just getting told with Roger.
Any questions?
I think so. I'm trying to figure out how to say it, because it doesn't sound stupid. Okay, so would it be more advantageous if we request the agriculture, basically get rid of the split zoning to be rezoned to residential to then kind of avoid the whole variance request?
This is a line that really differentiates ag zoning from residential zoning, and it's always challenging to say, where do you go? Because if we stop there, well, why don't we just pick up the other parcels immediately west, because they're smaller? And
Which I
it
thought of the
kind
same thing, yeah.
can be a slippery slope. And we think that this is the better route to go, requesting the variances rather than
Okay.
rezone the entirety of the property. It's a very unique situation. It's split zone down the middle. And we were joking before in reviewing, this is why you all exist, to grant variances in special circumstances like this.
Okay.
I kind of said the same thing. Any more questions? All right. What? What?
Not for staff, I guess so, for the owner.
Is the petitioner present? Please name and address, and you got 10 minutes.
And the petitioner did bring a handout for you all that I'll go ahead and pass out.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Alex Bowman. I'm an attorney with a law firm of Krieg DeVault, 4101 Edison Lakes Parkway, Suite 100, Mishawaka, Indiana, 46545. I represent Evelyn Weldy and her deceased husband, Gary Weldy, who's listed as an owner of the property. Succinctly, I don't have much more to offer than what the staff has already presented to the board. This particular property is certainly unique, given the width of the property on the southern half of the agricultural zone. That makes the construction of any accessory building particularly difficult, given the agricultural setback requirement. What I've presented here, and I appreciate the staff handing it out, is a photo showing the site of the pole barn looking towards the road to give an indication as to the character of that particular parcel of land. I've also identified on the site plan and the other GIS photo there, the names of the adjacent property owners. The parcel, the large parcel there to the southeast is owned by Camp Millhouse. There's a letter of support from the executive director of Camp Millhouse in the packet that's been provided. The owner of the small farm parcel and the adjacent parcel to the immediate west have also provided written letters in support of this variance request. With that, I'm happy to take any questions and certainly appreciate the board's consideration and ask that the petition be granted.
Okay.
Will the rented or purchased shipping container be removed for this to be placed in its spot, or what?
That's the idea. That's the idea. That's, I mean, we'll call it a semi-permanent structure there, but that's makeshift for the type of storage that's contemplated in this pole barn.
And then it appears the other outbuilding is a livable space. Is that someone living out there?
No, there is no one living in that space. Candidly, I don't know if I have a satisfactory answer as to the nature of what that is, other than to say it's an outbuilding, and I don't believe there's anybody residing in it.
It's like a nice tiny house.
He's looking for a place to rent.
Not yet, my wife still likes me.
Kylie, during your site inspection, did you see anything that would indicate
Give it time.
that someone was living?
No,
Okay.
there was no one back there, and
Okay.
there's only the one car.
I like some money.
All I got.
Anybody else got any questions? No? All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody in house that would like to speak for this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Public portion is now closed. Anybody got any questions?
And just for the record, there were 3 letters of support in that little packet you got from the petitioner. The third one did not have an address on it, but it was identified by parcel number on the map that's on like the 3rd page. I would consider that to be as identifiable as an address, so I think you can accept all 3.
All right.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question, the neighbor Brown, there's no reference other than, this says the neighbor, so.
If you look at, I think it's page 3, or if you count the first page, the one that has like the map of the parcels. It identifies where each of those letters were from, and there's a parcel number on that parcel.
Okay, yeah, I see.
That's as good as an address as far as, I think, legally speaking, so I think you can accept that one.
Thank you.
It's unusual, but it should work.
Okay.
I'm guessing that building gets in the way. Meaning,
What building?
well, the back setback is only 12 feet. Meaning, why couldn't they move it forward 18 feet? And I'm guessing back, that building gets in the way.
Other building, yeah.
The other building gets in the way. Because the side to side is one thing, the back's
Yeah.
another thing.
That shed?
Yeah. And the reason they don't center is because you probably got a door on the east end or west end, whatever direction it is. That's why they do 16 and 8. I get it.
I'll take a motion.
Oh, did we close the public portion already? Sorry.
Did.
Make a motion to accept the variances as requested for petition number 325-800 Kern Road. This is Joe Velleman.
Donnie Ritzma, second.
Motion and a second. Shelley?
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Variances. Thank you. Number 4.
Location 10545 Vistula Road. Owner William and Lisa Whiteman. Requested actions. Variance number 1 from section 154.107 sub C1 to allow a front east setback of 16 feet where a minimum of 25 feet is required. Variance number 2 from section 154.107 sub C3 to allow a rear west setback of 10 feet where a minimum of 10 feet is required for a home addition. Zoning R Single Family District, County.
This is Kylie Abrams again, Area Plan Commission staff. Staff recommends approval of the variances. The petitioner is seeking to construct additional living space and an attached garage onto the existing home on the property. The uniqueness of this riverfront lot and the curvature of Vistula Road into Eastview into Vistula Road leaves little buildable area for expansion. This is the view of the home from the corner of Eastview and Vistula. This is the existing garage and shed that would both remain. This is looking north onto the curve, onto Vistula, and looking south on Eastview. These are just some photos to show that the immediate neighbors of the petitioner that demonstrate that large home additions and homes that don't meet setbacks or development standards for this district are very common in this area along the river. This is the provided site plan from the petitioner. As you can see, the garage will be butting out towards the corner of Eastview and Vistula. Under the criteria, number 1, the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Approval of these requests and variances would not be injurious. The additional parking space would only improve the welfare of the petitioner and the community. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The area adjacent to the property would likely be unaffected by the granting of this variance. As seen in the presented photos, homes of this proposed size on smaller lots are varying in character with this riverfront area. And number 3, the strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Strict application of the ordinance would in this case result in practical difficulties. The petitioner is currently extremely limited in the use of the property for expansion or improvements that would otherwise not be difficult for a similarly sized lot located elsewhere due to the uniqueness of the lot. And I'll take any questions.
Anybody got any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Is the petitioner present? Name and address in 10 minutes, please.
Hi, I'm William Whiteman. This is my wife, Lisa Whiteman. We're at currently...
10545 Vistula Road. We just hope to be able to add on to our home. It's very tiny. It's like a cottage, really. We still have a teenage son living with us, and it's just super cramped. So.
We've been looking for years now for the perfect river home for us, and this one had everything except a little bit of size to offer. We like what's there. We just want to add to it.
It's a beautiful spot.
Yep, it has
Thank you.
a beautiful river view.
The view is what really got us. We just wanted that river view so much.
We had like 5 minutes to make a decision when we looked at it in February when it was covered with snow. So we're
Yeah.
happy with our decision. We just would hope that we have, it's very confusing what to call the front, the rear. When I called the zoning board, they were
Baffled too.
baffled as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the side that they're calling rear really looks like the side adjacent to the house with the red roof there anyway. So we're just trying to build something that looks like it makes sense and will fit in.
Can you clarify that a little bit for me? So this sheet that I have here that shows addition of the garage, is that gonna be adding then on that footage onto both the east and south side? So it's basically growing to the southeast towards Eastview?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
We don't have any letters from our neighbors, but we have spoken to them all, and they are all in favor of it, as far as we know,
Yep.
so.
They've been very supportive.
Well, if they weren't in favor of it, they could have been here today.
Correct.
Well,
True.
Is this on a city sewer system?
it is not
City water.
city water.
Oh, yeah, I see septic tank. Where's your field at?
It has a newer dry well.
Probably gonna run down the hill.
Basically, everything along there is all dry wells.
Yeah.
It passed inspection
In
in
February.
February when we bought the house, and
I bet it did.
How close will the addition be encroaching into that septic tank? I mean, what's that, is that 10 feet, 20 feet, 25 feet from the new addition to where the septic is?
10 feet to the nearest point.
Can't get any closer than 10 foot.
Yeah. The corner of the left
part of the building.
corner of the service, or the main door on the garage addition, I've kind of got that at about like 10 feet to the tank coming from the house. And then dry wells are, I think there's a drawing. I think there was a drawing showing where those were.
Flip one more, will you, Kayla? Oh, you don't have, it's in here, but it's not on
There is
there.
one.
Old house.
Do you have any idea how old this home is?
1959,
59 it was built?
yeah.
It's a new house.
There's a side yard, a good side, I don't, the area of the yard closest along the right there, we figured if we had to put in a new septic system eventually, and we did talk to a septic person, and he said there would be enough room left there in order to do that if need be.
It'd probably have to be a bed system.
A bed system, yeah.
So are these your prints that you drew, or did these come from a contractor, or?
We have a builder, yeah, Tom Evans, he's Evans Building,
Right.
yeah.
They're not final plans.
They're not final, we
We knew a zoning change was gonna be needed, so he asked that we get that before going any farther with the plans, before we invest all that.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Get reorganized here.
Signed up for a basement, huh?
All right, we'll open it up to the public now. Is there anybody that would like to speak for or in favor of this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom?
No.
See none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom?
No.
Seeing none, the public portion is now closed. You guys got any final questions? Or I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, when it comes to water lots, I think they're unique in their own right, and if you live across the street from it, you don't have, unfortunately, you're not on the river, so you don't get to see it. So everyone maximizes the space they can on the lots they have available. I think it's a good opportunity to grow that house for someone into something that's more current and modern, and I make a motion to approve the variances as requested.
Bob Hawley, I approve that, or second that, excuse me.
You approve it?
Thanks, Bob. He approves it.
Our motion and a second.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
And Mr. Tavernier.
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals grants your variances and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you. 5.
Location 12500 Riley Road. Owner TL Land LLC. Variance 1 from section 154.092 sub A to allow an area of 2.19 acres where a minimum of 20 acres is required. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
All right. Well, earlier in the meeting, when you all asked about the recommendation of whether to place property in an outlot, that's what we have here in this case. I'll go through it for you. This property is located on Riley Road, just east of Dogwood. The request is for a variance to allow a lot area of 2.19 acres approximately where 20 acres is required. Staff recommends approval of the variance on the condition that the balance of the existing parcel, which is approximately 55 acres, that be placed in an outlot during the minor subdivision process. Currently, the petitioner owns 75 acres of land, which is across 3 adjacent parcels with 980 feet of frontage on Dogwood and 2,600 feet of frontage on Riley Road. This allows for the division of 3 buildable lots, remember 20 acres for lot area. approval would allow the 2.19 acres to be split off, leaving 73 acres. The remaining property would have sufficient acreage and frontage to be divided into 3 buildable lots. So by allowing the variance for the 2 acres, and then leaving the acreage without any condition for the outlot, creates that possibility for an additional lot beyond what would be allowed under the zoning ordinance. So staff is recommending that the remaining 55 acres be placed into an outlot that provides the potential of 3, that would prevent the additional creation of a buildable lot. This is the house proposed to be split off, the 2.19 acres along Riley Road. The site plan showing the home. And then looking at the state code criteria, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. If the variance is granted requiring the balance of the parcel to be placed in an outlot, sufficient acreage and frontage remains with the balance in neighboring parcels owned by the petitioner to allow future division of 3 buildable lots without the need for variances. Counting the 2.19 acre lot, this would result in the potential for an additional lot, which is why staff's recommending the condition. The use and value of the area adjacent could be affected in a substantially adverse manner if we don't require the outlot for the balance of the property. And strict application to the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties of the use of the property. It would prevent a subdivision which would allow the existing house to be split off separately from the 55 acres of cultivated farmland. Allowing this promotes the ongoing use and value of both properties by allowing them to be separately owned. Petitioner is present, and I am happy to answer any questions.
With the new comprehensive plan, what's it gonna do with outlots?
So that's a very loaded and vague question without a specific answer. I think, we need to look at areas within the county in specific geographic, I think we will need to look at specific geographic areas within the county. Where do we have ag land that really has not been hacked up and where the land is actively being tilled? This would be such an area, right? We have a lot of large lot parcels where they have not been compromised as other areas in the county. I think we'll need to look at what the standard is, if the same standard should apply across the board, if we need different standards for different areas of the county. I encourage you to sign up for farmland preservation and be on that group with us, Sydney.
I think you just got volunchosen. I think you already did.
It's better than voluntold.
I would love to have your perspective.
Any more questions? No? All right, Terry?
Terry Lang from Lang Feeney, the Whiteman office. Address is 715 South Michigan Street here in South Bend to represent the petitioner. Basically, Tim Laddick's doing a little estate planning here with this property, cutting out his house from the agricultural tillable portion of it, going to be placing it into a trust, and there is no objection to the balance of the property at this point being made into an outlot. It's happening in a lot of cases where people are planning, cut out the house, the tillable portion then becomes a cash income then in the future for lease farming when he decides to quit having it farmed. He can have it continued to be farmed as a lease farm. So the petition before you is the area that you saw on the aerial map, which is shown in basically squaring off the green area on the grassy area right there. So that's the petition before you is for that parcel size.
Okay, so they don't have an issue with
No.
surveying it and keeping it an outlot and being done with it?
Not at all.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions?
No, sir.
No? All right, thanks, sir.
I do want to make a statement, though. The property we didn't make an outlot, and the property we did is only about 2 miles as crow flies.
Okay.
The Shively Beach from Riley and Dogwood.
Yeah, but two significantly different acreage,
Yeah,
capabilities.
it's two different scenarios.
Well,
But
this-
let's keep focused on this one. All right, thanks, Terry. Is there, I guess let's open this up to the public. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. I see none. Any on Zoom?
No.
I see none. Is there anybody who would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. See none. Is there any on Zoom? Seeing none. Public portion is now closed. Anybody else got any questions? No? I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, based off of the intent of the petitioner and Mr. Lang to keep as much tillable property into the agricultural district as possible, I would make a motion to approve the variance on the condition that the balance of existing parcel 011-1016-0189 be placed as an outlot. Is that the correct way to do it?
Bob Hawley, I will be happy to second that.
Motion and a second. Shelley?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Vellman?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts.
Granted the variance with a
Granted
condition.
variances with conditions and will issue written findings of the facts. Do I get a gold star like Joe?
I don't have one, but
Oh.
if I did, you'd both get one.
It's great that Joe can make motions now.
Thank you.
Does them so well.
That's what I'm getting at.
Thanks, Terry. All right, number 6.
Location 10386 McKinley Highway. Owner, Wood Rental Properties, LLC. Requested action. Following variances. Number 1, from section 154.182 sub C 1 to allow a front north yard setback of 34 feet where a minimum of 40 feet is required. Variance number 2, from section 154.182 sub C 3 to allow a side west yard setback of 4 foot where a minimum of 20 feet is required. Variance number 3, from section 154.182 sub C 3 to allow a side east yard setback of 11 feet where a minimum of 20 feet is required. Number 4, from section 154.182 sub C 4 to allow a rear south yard setback of 16 feet where 20 feet is required. Number 5, from section 154.332, required front yard and side yard landscaping to the landscaping currently provided on site. And number 6, from section 154.333, required foundation landscaping to the landscaping currently provided on site. Zoning C Commercial District, County.
I noticed that a Mr. Craig Anthony on Zoom has turned his camera on and unmuted himself. If you're interested in being addressed in this, in the public hearing portion, you'll be able to speak then, but at this time, you're going to need to be muted and have your camera off, please.
Thanks,
Thank
Brandy.
you.
This is Kylie Abrams, Area Plan Commission staff again. So the subject property is a storage facility on the south side of McKinley, just east of Apple and Osceola. The property was previously subject to a final site plan in 2015. The property was then rezoned from C Commercial Site Plan Specific to C, commercial, not subject to a site plan in January 2021. A petition for variances from the required front setback of 40 feet to 26 feet and from the required side setback abutting a residential district from 20 feet to 3 feet was heard by this board in June 2021. This board granted 35 feet, 40 feet is required for the front, and 14 where 20 feet is required for the sides. Here's the zoning map of the property. Although this is somewhat of a commercial mixed corridor along McKinley, the property is surrounded on all sides by our single-family residential. Following the June 2021 ABZA, an as-built survey was submitted showing that the front building was constructed at 29 feet where 35 feet was granted. To bring the property into compliance, the contractor cut off part of the front of the building, bringing the setback to 34.4 feet. As shown on the survey submitted with the application, the petitioner is now requesting a variance to legalize the 34.4 front north setback where 35 was previously approved. Staff's original recommendation for the side west setback was 8 feet to be consistent with the 2015 final site plan. However, the petitioner was willing to go up to 14 feet. The petitioner is now seeking to legalize the side west setback to 4 feet where 20 feet is required and the east side setback to 11 feet where 20 is required. This part of the survey is showing the southern part of the subject property. As shown, the rear setback, which was shown as 20 feet on the approved revised final site plan. You can see that the rear middle building was constructed at 16.9 feet, where 20 feet was originally required and approved. Additionally, to legalize the site, the property owner is seeking variances from required type 2 full screening landscaping along the entire length of the lot abutting the residential districts, and foundational landscaping along the front of the building facing McKinley to no landscaping. In summary, the petitioner is seeking to legalize several nonconforming setbacks and landscaping deficiencies. This is the view of the site from McKinley, looking west and east. This is the view of the western neighbor's property and the view of the eastern neighbor's property. On to the state criteria. Staff is recommending approval of the front north setback variance to allow 34.5 feet where 40 feet is required, and the side east setback of 11 feet where 20 feet is required. And staff is recommending denial of the side west setback variance to allow 4 feet where 20 feet is required, the rear setback variance to allow 16 feet where 20 feet is required, and the variance from the required type 2 full screening landscaping of the length of the lot line which abuts the residential district. And finally, the foundational landscaping provided near the front building facing McKinley Highway to the existing landscaping, which would include a partial privacy fence along the south lot line and a partial tree line along the west lot line. Number 1, the approval would not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Approval of the front and side east setbacks will not be injurious. Neighbors who attended previous hearings have stated that the main concern is the 4-foot setback. Approval of the rear and side west setbacks and landscaping variances would be injurious to the surrounding area. A 4.5-foot setback does not provide enough reasonable space between the lots, and the neighbors are concerned about runoff and traffic. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Approval of the front and side east setbacks will have little effect on the surrounding area. The buildings are very close to adhering development standards. These buildings are not out of character for this McKinley corridor. Approval of the rear and side west setbacks and landscaping variances would affect the surrounding areas in a substantially adverse manner. A lack of proper setbacks for these areas and a lack of landscaping screening for such an intensive commercial use could be detrimental to future use and future resale value of the eastern, western, and southern adjacent properties. And finally, number 3, the strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Approval of the requested front and side east setbacks would provide relief from the practical difficulty of the terms of the chapter. The angled nature of the lot resulted in the incorrectly angled building in the front. That's requesting the 34.5 setback rather than 34.5 rather than 35. Enforcement of the 20-foot setback would prevent the petitioner from adhering to the previously agreed-upon 8-foot side setback that was approved in 2015. And approval of these variances would correct ongoing issues. But there is little practical difficulty in meeting the required side, west, and rear setbacks and landscaping standards. I'll take any questions.
So let me just, staff is recommending approval for variance 1, denial for variance 2, approval for variance 3, denial for 4, 5, and 6.
That's correct.
And are we, I'm sorry? There's 6.
2 landscaping variances, 1 for perimeter and 1 for foundation.
Are we doing these individually?
Since there's so many, it would probably be too confusing to do it otherwise. So, yeah, I would say when you get to the motion part, do them separately.
You guys got any other questions?
Apparently I wasn't here in June of 2021, so I wasn't privy to the original petition on this. I'm a little confused. What was requested and granted was not done.
I'm sure the petitioner can provide a little more clarity, but that is what was requested and what was done. There being a discrepancy is something that's pervasive for the history of this property. So in 2015, we had a site plan submitted for the property showing a number of the buildings, not the new ones to the north, but the existing buildings at the rear. And even then, it was shown as 20 feet. Like as an example, the middle one at the rear was shown as at 20 feet, approved via a revised final site plan. Came to light in the survey that was submitted today, it's at 16.9. That is a past issue that they're seeking to legalize. In regards to the variances that were before the board last year, 35, I believe, I don't recall what was requested, but 35 is what was granted and 29 is what was built. It never came back to the board because in the communications with the building department and the site inspections before we would release the final C of O, we said you have to bring it into compliance with what was granted by the board. So the builder cut off a section of the building at the north. It was required to be cut to 35 feet based on what the board granted, but it's really 34.4. So they're seeking to legalize that. The side setback is requested, well, it's shown as 13 feet.
Right.
14 feet was granted.
That's correct.
And that was based on what the builder agreed to. Staff had recommended
8 feet.
8 feet. There was a concern from the neighbor, and the builder said, that's fine, I can build it to 14. Well, what was built is 13.1. And then in this application, they're seeking to legalize the side setbacks. They've requested 4 feet on the west and 11 feet on the east, whereas the site plan on file has 10 feet on both sides. And the 11 feet will be, or 10 feet on the west is what's shown on the site plan. 20 feet is what's required. So really, they're seeking to legalize all existing buildings on the property built last year and in all of, I mean, since it's been developed, which is why they're also going for the landscaping variances too.
So the ramifications of denying 2 would be
The ramifications of what, Lance?
denying variance number 2, the 4.5.
That's the west setback, Abby.
The west side, they have to bring it into compliance.
Like tear half the building down?
Yep.
Who polices this when they're building it?
In my conversations about the property and various APRA requests, Access to Public Records Act requests, it's my understanding, and Terry can provide additional insight on this, and I see folks on Zoom that are probably here for it, is that they're seeking to sell and they need to legalize the site in order for that to happen. Terry has his hand up.
I bet we're gonna fill some gaps here, aren't we?
Oh, I can fill a lot of gaps.
All right, you guys got any more questions? No?
Let
All right.
Terry fill the gaps.
Terry, you got 10 minutes.
Terry Lang, I don't know if 10 minutes will handle it.
Yeah, go
I'll do
fast,
my
man.
best.
You got 10 minutes.
Terry Lang from Lang Feeney, the Whiteman office. Address is 715 South Michigan Street here in South Bend. As Abby had indicated in her rather lengthy explanation, when the very first site plan was done for the development of these units, they made the broad-based assumption this property is 90 degrees. It was not 90 degrees on that site plan. The buildings were started construction, and then the next building was built off of the building that was up. And as it progressed down, that transition that's not 90 degrees became closer and closer as you work your way north on the property. If you go back to the site plan right there, the development worked its way to the north, coming off of those buildings each time the contractor built the next building using the first building for that. It would have been the ideal situation if they would have had the survey done to start with. Luckily, I wasn't the surveyor for that. Since then, there's been 3 surveyors out there, and each case, they probably should have followed up with the variance request for all of these things that had been constructed each time they went down the line. It's carried forward now. As Abby had indicated earlier in the year, the last building was constructed. The developer of the property, Wood Rentals, has put the property up for sale, and they have a buyer. An ALTA survey was done, which is the highest order survey for property. All of these deficiencies were noted on that ALTA survey, which means it will not pass the necessary ALTA requirements for being able to get commercial financing for the sale of the property. Wood Rentals is moved out of state now. They live down in Florida. They're looking to sell this and retire at that location. And I've been given this great job of trying to explain to you in less than 10 minutes what should have happened, 20 years ago when the first building went up. But the variances that are asking for will leave all the buildings exactly the way they are. The concern with regards to landscaping along the sides, as if you go back to the aerial map, you'll see that there are huge trees along the sidelines of the property that would be required to be trimmed back to be able to put in the necessary fencing and landscaping. So we're going to be cutting trees that are overhanging on both sides, so it's probably going to be doing more hindrance. You can see there, and on the other side, as you get back farther, there are, next one I think also shows, right there, you can see all the trees down the line there on Mr. Anthony's property. So all of those trees would have to be cut, trimmed up to be able to do the necessary installation for this. Each of the variance requests are for existing structures that are there to utilize the setbacks for the buildings that are there and not have to take out landscaping to put in landscaping for that requirement. This will allow the ALTA survey then to be approved with these variances request, and then they could close on the property, and basically you'll have a happy buyer and a happy seller with regards to that. And if you have any additional questions, I'll try to answer them the best I can. I'm the guy at the very end trying to, when each of these previous 3 surveyors, 2 of them are out of business now, and now we're just trying to make it something that a buyer can buy and a seller can, be happy that the deal's done. I mean, they tried to comply with cutting the building off. They shortened up the buildings when they were here previously for the one side also. They've been bending over backwards but the very key thing was, 20 years ago, they should have had that survey and the site plan should have been put together with regards to that survey. And then when they constructed the buildings, they probably should have had the first building laid out by a surveyor. I'd be happy to.
Abby, so on the landscaping side of things, can we opt into saying something like existing trees can exist, but there needs to be a row of arborvitaes to shield those areas that are obviously very detrimental to the neighbor there?
Terry, are the trees on the property, on the subject property, or are they on the neighbor's property?
Yes, they're both down the line. So to put in new trees that are, if you don't cut the trees, the stuff that you're planting is gonna not get any sunlight.
Well,
Out in
I'm
front,
saying
in this
leaving-
front portion of it,
I
yeah,
guess-
you could do it, but
Yeah,
a
that's-
majority of
that's my
the
point.
back 2/3 of the property
Right.
Right,
is,
no, I think he's just saying, go back to the picture that we were
Well,
looking at.
but Abby asked, are the trees that are overhanging, are they on the petitioner's property, or are they on
That
the,
house.
trees would not have been located on the Alta survey that was done. So I can't tell you whether every tree is on Mr. Wood's property, or if it's on Mr. Anthony's property, or the property owner to the south.
Okay, Terry, is there dimension on the Woods property to do type 2 screening along that fence and that building that's adjacent to the house?
There's barely enough room in that area right there, because that fence is, if you go back to the survey
Like
part.
on the line?
Is almost right on the line, yes. If you go up to the top right there, you can see that the top building up there and the fence location, the fence is located, about 8 feet, so there's about 3-4 feet away from that it could be planted there.
Or it could be inside the fence.
Inside the fence, yeah.
But it kind of defeats the purpose of screening if it's on the inside of the fence, but I guess if that is a
I don't
requirement.
mind the fence, I mind the building.
I mean, there is a pole building on the adjacent property to the west also that, doesn't have landscaping or anything like that with regards to it either. But,
Man, this is an awful, from staff's perspective, this is an awful situation. And I really am sympathetic, to all parties involved. But, I think you all, and Terry knows, that we can't, we can't recommend approval because whoopsies, it's already there, right? So we have our position, and if we recommended approval for everything that accidentally got built over time, then that would totally erode our, reputation.
But at this point, that
Yeah.
one building in the center was built, so many years ago,
Yeah.
and now it came to light, 5 years later or 10 years later. You're gonna make them cut off the back 5 foot of that rear building back there?
Yep, Terry, I was trying to age every building there based on historic aerials and building permits, and I do see the initial phase, I think, went in something like the late 90s. or
Right, it's been up for over
late
20
80s,
years,
yeah.
yeah.
so I've got an argument for that, right? As a builder, okay, we get hit, as a residential builder, we get hit with things that are extremely minimal, right? But we can't get our C of O because we don't have proper hand railing going down a deck or something like that, right? So as a commercial contractor, you're kind of held to a different standard, but kind of more of a higher standard, right? Because you're dealing with heavier equipment, you're using GPS, to me, it just seems like there's a consistent, and I know that you're the fourth surveyor, fifth surveyor, whatever it is, but it seems to me like there's a consistent, let's do it, and then let's ask for forgiveness instead of permission, right? Is what it kind of.
I don't know if that was the case.
I understand, but that's what it feels like.
But it's one of those, it appears that way here, and I think that survey at the very beginning, back in 1990s, would have been the solution, because everybody would have known exactly where those property lines are. Here we are, moving, 30 years down the road now. How do you address a building that sits, 4 or 5 foot over the setback
So I
line?
was here for this last year, right?
Right, I was too, I had something else.
And
up,
I
so.
specifically asked, do you have a builder for this? Who's your builder? So on and so forth. And whoever it was that was talking, I don't remember who was
Yeah,
talking.
it was the
said-
contractor that did the representation for
Yeah,
it.
so he said, I got this, I do this all the time, we're not gonna have any problems. It's, if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty sure I remember this correctly, that, you know, he said, nope, we're gonna do this, we're not gonna have any problems, and here clearly we have problems with the building that was just built, right?
Right, by that half foot up front there, yeah.
Well, it was more than a half
Well,
foot
yeah, they
because.
cut off part of it, yes.
Yeah, and so, so it just seems like there's a whole lot of, we'll do what we want, and then if we get caught, we get caught. If not, then
Well, and
we'll ask for
to some extent,
forgiveness.
maybe that notification should go to the building department that, or the planning department now that approves the locations for buildings and things, that contractor has a history of not following the plan or doing what he says. You know, put a gold star by his name as, you know, somebody that's not doing things the right way.
Well, fortunately, that's what we have Crystal for now in the building
Yes.
department, right?
But at this point, you know, you as a homeowner or as a person hiring a contractor, you don't know whether that's the case or not. So you're kind of relying upon their reputation or what they've done in the past. And what we're looking at right now is, okay, we've got one of the biggest messes you ever seen, and we can't get financing for the sale of the property. We can't, you know, and it's a tough situation.
So here's one thing, sorry, Bob, give me one more, let me say
Okay.
one more thing. So here's one thing that I was told when I first started in the construction industry, right? Ignorance is not an excuse.
Oh, I know that.
So, to me, I feel like there are more things. I mean, we got 9 houses going right now, and every single one of them are staked out. They've been looked at, they've been approved, everything's been done. And it just seems to me like there should have been a little more,
But
policing.
Well, and that is what I was just kind of referring to. Maybe the contractor that's not doing it right needs to have, you know, double secret probation, as they said in the movie Animal House, so that, you know, hey, it's not that easy to come in the next time if you're not doing it right. I mean, at this point, we've got 4 contractors that build multiple buildings here, and each one of them has relied on the previous one without actually having that initial survey till it got down to the very last building being put up. And then they ended up screwing it up from there, having to cut off part of the building. So, you know, I don't know what the answer is for that.
Abby, was there C of O for all these buildings?
Oh, man. Kylie and I went back through them, and we don't have all of those records
Okay.
here today.
Well-
I can't say, I could say that I found permits and C of Os for some of them. In order to verify all of them, I'd have to go back through the database.
Well, let's assume they did, okay? I mean, we have to assume that the building department did its job, and I'm with you, but I would argue that the building department not doing its job at the foundation stage should not, I have a hard time penalizing an owner.
The building department does not police foundations. That's what your surveyors are for. That's what your building department is gonna go out and they're going to inspect the footer depth. They're going to inspect, they're not gonna go out and, your building is staked. Your building inspectors are not gonna go out and pull.
Okay, so who polices this? It's not him,
No. Who does police?
it's them,
The-
then, if
the
it's not the building department.
The building department aren't, the inspectors aren't surveyors.
Yeah.
The surveyor is responsible for determining where that the building
Well,
is
the-
built
the-
in
the-
compliance.
Yeah, the conundrum here is that this could be going on in every single parcel in the county, and what we're effectively saying is, hope you don't get caught, and hope nothing's wrong. And that's the circular reasoning that I'm trying to get to the bottom of here.
Your building inspectors are inspectors. They're not gonna,
Okay, so.
most of them will go out, and if it looks too close, they'll pull a tape measure, but if it's within,
Okay, that building looks pretty close.
But isn't it the inspector's
lined up
job
with
to
the
verify
fence.
that they followed the rules
I
and?
don't know, I don't work for the county.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I'm like, that would be as if to say every owner has to go out with a tape measure and verify that their stuff is lined up with whatever, or pay Terry $3,000 to do it, no offense.
But
but
that
we
would
don't
have
do
solved
that.
the problem.
Well,
From the
it
very
would have,
beginning.
yeah. It should have been proactive, I get that.
Yes.
But that's the
And-
reasoning behind having a surveyor and having your lots staked out, right? Having your houses staked out. That's the whole reasoning behind hiring Terry or
But there
Avon
were
Marsh or
surveyors,
whatever.
were there not?
At the very last phase, there was. And it was done, I think, by
Deb Marbach, or,
Marbach Brady Weaver.
yeah, Weaver.
Okay.
Now they're
Deborah
Sam.
Hughes.
Now they're Sam. And the site plan prior to that was put together by Progressive Engineering. I couldn't find anything that showed that there was a survey done other than the site plan. So the initial site plan took place. It was carried through the second site plan without, two steps where surveys should have been done. And it carried to the third step when the very first survey was done that showed, hey, this isn't correct. And now we've got the fourth survey being done that says, okay, everything is not in compliance. How do you penalize a builder that's a homeowner, or in this case, the Woods Rentals, penalize them for they relied upon the contractor, and it's been carried through, to this point, 30 years. I don't want to hurt any neighbors. Mr. Woods owns the property to the east. Mr. Anthony is online right now. We can get his perspective also with regards to that once we get to the public hearing part. So maybe what we need to do is hear what the public has to say, and then we can try to address their concerns with regards to.
Rebuttal?
And I can keep that to 5 minutes.
I've got a question. We wouldn't be here today, am I right, by saying if the property wasn't for sale and the buyer was trying to get financing, that's the reason we're here today, because the lender won't lend the money because of these infractions.
Correct.
Is that a fair statement?
That is a very good assessment, Mr. Hawley.
Okay. So actually, Mr. Wood could continue to operate as he is for whoever long, because the reason he owns the property,
Right.
but he wants to sell it.
Yeah, he is looking to retire.
And that's why we're
and
here.
Dangle his toes in the ocean, like I'm going to be doing in a year or two down the road.
And
But-
I'm going to go back 30 years ago or 40 years ago, and I know the gentleman, and at that time, he might have said, this is a lot line, this is a lot line, here's where I want to build my
The first
storage
building,
sheds.
yeah,
That might have been the way it happened
right.
initially. I'm just throwing it on the table.
And that assumption is probably a very good assumption of what started at the very beginning with this, Mr. Hawley.
Right.
So let's go ahead and hear the public hearing, and we
Yep.
can see what the concerns need to be addressed then.
You got something?
Yes, thanks, DJ. Joe, in response to your question, or your comment rather, about landscaping in or outside the fence, we require the landscaping to be along the property line, but we don't specify that it has to be planted on inside or outside the fence. There is also a request for foundation landscaping, a variance from foundation landscaping for the building that just went in last year. So that, I think, argument is a little less solid when they're seeking a variance for a building that just was constructed. Landscaping from foundation.
Which one was that?
Kylie? Foundation landscaping from the northernmost building?
Yes.
Yeah, but the planning,
At the
I mean,
entrance.
if the fence is on the property line, it has to be on the inside, it can't be on the neighbor's property.
Right, but I'm not saying just because the fence is along the property line doesn't mean we have a requirement that it has to be
Yeah.
on the outside of the fence.
I'm with
Yep, okay.
And Abby, this is an ongoing violation, correct?
Could you
So-
speak in
so
the
we-
microphone? I
we
can't
will-
hear.
Sorry, I was just confirming with Abby. Bob, this property has an open violation complaint against it, so we have been trying to bring it into compliance. He wouldn't be allowed to just keep operating as
Oh,
is.
is that right?
We are working to bring it into compliance, and this is where we ended up.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up.
Can I ask what the complaint was so that I know what might be coming from the public here?
I would have to look, but I believe it's just about the setbacks, correct?
I'm not aware.
I'm not
if this-
sure.
I am not aware.
I would have to look.
All right. Good? Okay. You guys good? Everybody good? No more
Yeah.
questions? All right, let's
I wanna
move
hear
this.
more.
Oh,
Let's move-
okay. I'd have to look and file.
I'll open up the public portion. Is there anybody in-house that would like to speak for this petition? Please step forward. I have to ask. Seeing none, is there any on Zoom? Please raise your hand on Zoom. I don't know how to do this.
Raised hand function.
Raise hand function. Or messaging in the chat. Seeing none, is there anybody in-house that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none, any on Zoom? Use the raise hand function or chat.
How do I do that?
Oh, there you go.
I don't know how to do that, Blake. Is
Name and address, please.
that me?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Or you could turn your camera on too.
Okay, is that good?
There you go.
Yes.
All right, name and address, please.
Craig Anthony at 10413 Caitlin Court, Osceola 46561. I'm also the property owner of 10412 McKinley Highway, Osceola 46561, which is the property on the west side there. I think I'm agreeing with the staff right now in recommending only 1 and 3, and I would vote against 2, 4, 5, and 6. I think it's been well discussed that this particular property owner, through his contractors, has consistently violated the ordinances and the setbacks set up by you folks. Even as recently as the last one when he, and I was the one to kind of notify, I think, some people that he was building too close to McKinley Highway on that north building and he was going to cut it back. And now, we're still 1.5 feet too far to the road. So it just seems to me that, and I think you've thoroughly discussed this, that just because you're putting something out there as a particular setback and even granting a variance off the setbacks, that are already in place for commercial property within the county and residential area, the variance is given, and we still on the last 2 buildings, not the original building that was put in 90 years ago or back in the 90s by Mr. Nate when he owned the property. But these last buildings that are put in by Wood Rentals have consistently violated the variances to these setbacks. And I just think that by going through and approving all these, just because we're wanting to sell this, I think that legitimizing the violation of these previous variances is setting a precedent within the county that I don't think want to get set. Because again, it's the old adage, we'll build it and, forget asking permission and we'll just beg for forgiveness later on. So I think I'm agreeing with the staff right now. As far as the screening along that fence, all that screening along that fence are predominantly all arborvitaes. They were all on my property, which is residential property. I was not required to put them in. I put them in just for my own screening because there is no screening on the Woods rental property. And I'm not too surprised that this property was for sale, because I know that we had seen a surveyor out there, and that the surveyor had brought up the fact that besides everything being discussed today, that the southwest property corner of this property is actually inside his fence, which is putting that west side of the fence and the south side of the fence on my property, which again, I just learned that from a surveyor that was out there a couple weeks ago. So I'm with the staff. 1 and 3, I don't have a problem with, but I cannot see approving 2, 4, 5, and 6 and legitimizing the violation of previous set variances.
Thanks, sir.
I'll take questions from y'all if you want.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this petition on Zoom?
Can you hear? Hi, my name is Nicole Rynell. I live at the property south on McKinley, 10335 Cherrywood Lane, Osceola, Indiana, 46561. If everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I also am in agreement with Craig Anthony. We've had issues with Mr. Woods and a separate issue with building stuff and clearing out property that wasn't his without getting approval, specifically on my property when he cleared trees all the way up to my fence line without my permission, and then proceeded to realize he was in the wrong and then tried to put up a privacy fence and put grass over a residential property that he was trying to put in for his commercial property. So there's been a long-standing issue with this person doing stuff and hoping to ask for forgiveness later. So I am also in agreement with what you guys have been discussing, and I'm thankful that you guys have seen through some of the stuff that unfortunately has happened over time that has not been caught.
Okay.
And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on Zoom that would like to speak against this petition? Seeing none, the petition or the public portion is now closed.
I have one question in rebuttal for Mr. Anthony. At this point, does he have any problem with regards to just the landscaping being in that front portion from the area that was visible on the aerial map right there, that's adjacent to his property just to the west? So that would be that north 50 feet or whatever that distance is from the property corner. I don't want to block the line of sight on McKinley when you pull out, but extend the landscaping up as far as allowed by ordinance along the westerly property line and provide the initial foundation landscaping. It would be nice to know what the complaint was for, so if it's something that we can work through, this would be the ideal time. I don't want to come back and rehash all of this again. If the complaint was one of these items, it would be nice to know. We don't have any problem with regards to, providing, arborvitaes along that westerly property line, foundation landscaping, but I don't know, they've already had to cut off part of the building and foundation to require the back building back there to cut off something that was put in. Abby, do you know when that middle building was built?
I at one time went through the aerials trying to date all of them so I could match them up to the C of Os and permits. And I'd have to go back. I'm sorry, Terry.
To ask them to cut down, 5 foot off the back of the building that's been there for, 20 years. Yes, I've heard what the other property owner said, that he tore up brush and stuff like that, putting up the buildings. The survey would have been the ideal situation, as I indicated to start with, to know whether you're on your property or on somebody else's. And as I indicate to a lot of property owners when they call my office is, you know, there's no tree more expensive than the one you cut down on somebody else's property. That would have been a tree that was, you know, somebody's grandmother gave it to them when their child was born or something. But the fact is, you know, a building that's been up 20 years or so, the one in the center, is there, is that necessary for that? Yeah, we'll provide the necessary, you know, screening along that westerly property line. Mr. Wood owns the property to the east, and we'll probably be getting rid of that shortly too. But at least this would comply with Mr. Anthony's concern about, you know, having the landscaping and the necessary foundation screening. But I can't see tearing down a building that was put in, you know, over 20 years ago.
Terry, which building are you referring to?
The one in the very center, in the back.
Okay, that building, this isn't an exactly accurate date, but I wrote down when they first showed up on our historical aerials, and that one is from, first shows up in 2002.
20 years ago. So I wasn't too far off on my assessment by looking at the building itself. So, you know, I can't see, you know, required to tear down a building that's been there 20 years at this point. We'll comply with the landscaping as necessary if that satisfies the Planning Commission staff and the adjacent property owners who seem to have the most concern. I believe the lady that had called is in this cul-de-sac right here, at that back corner back there. It's not immediately adjacent to the petition parcel, but it must have been something that Mr. Woods did on his parcel to the east, the residential zone piece that he did clearing on.
Terry,
But-
does the hard surface go all the way to the property line at the rear, or is there any grassy area that?
Just to the fence. You got the small retention areas in each of the two corners. The fence is right near the south property line, and the asphalt goes up to within a foot of that area.
So one of the requested variances to legalize the site is, you know, from the type 2 landscaping. If that were to be denied, could you put it in? I mean, you'd have to.
Along the south property
Yeah.
line, we'd have to tear the fence out and asphalt, and all of that's been in for, you know, I'm looking to satisfy the part up front that has been the most concern. I don't know if the screening along the south property line, I mean, you're gonna be getting right up to the existing fence that's there.
The reason why I ask is that number 5 is from the required front side yard landscaping to landscaping provided on site.
So the front yard setback, the way that's worded, it's kind of, the front yard, I'm assuming that is the area out by the building up front. Am I correct? And that's what I interpreted that as. So providing that landscaping along that west portion, the northern, if you want to say, third from the buildings forward out to McKinley, and the appropriate foundation landscaping. The rest of that is, I can't see them going in tearing out fences, and it's going to disturb the retention areas back there. You've got, you know, landscaping that you're going to ask to put in the retention areas. I can't fathom, you know, doing that kind of damage to something that's been there for 20 years. And as everybody, I think, on the board had indicated in the discussion here, we're not, I guess you're penalizing a property owner who relied upon a professional to do the job right. I don't know, you know, especially 20 years ago, most likely, as in any case, they may not even be around anymore to have, you know, recourse against them. Obviously, the one up front, the building up front, they did do what was necessary, what they thought was the exact amount, and fell a half a foot short on that front setback up there. So, I mean, they tried to do what was required on that front area up there.
Were you the surveyor? Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
Terry, do you know Nate was the original owner of the property.
I don't know, Nate.
Did he start the storage sheds?
According to Mr. Anthony, yes. My history on the property is more recent, would be
Yours would be, say, from Wood on?
Mr. Wood, and I've also done work for Mr. Anthony also.
Yeah. Well then, okay, I'm trying to picture when they started, and then when did Wood get into the act, and where did that take place, where they just kind of went along with what was there already?
A check of the property card records in the auditor's office could tell you when that transition took place. But it's, like I say, it's not going to change what's
Yeah,
there right now.
I'm kind of, agreeing with you regarding, what you don't want to do, or things that are 20 years old, you start tearing and changing, and it's going to be pretty costly. But it was done wrong, I agree.
So I got a question here, because there's a lot of questions that we've asked, there's a lot of questions that Terry's asked that we don't have answers to at this particular moment. Is there a way to bump this to next month and get said answers?
Mr. Chairman?
And one thing that I would recommend, and I'd look to Brandy for guidance, is that Terry could provide a site plan showing some of the landscaping that he's describing, so that way you're not making your motions on the fly, and we have an idea of what you would be able to propose.
I can show on the plan that was provided for that Alta survey. If I have to generate a whole new one, I won't be able to generate that for probably 2 months right now. I'm backed up that far in all the design departments right now. But if you want me to show on the site plan that was provided, the areas to be landscaped so that you'll be able to evaluate from that, yeah, I can do that.
I would, personally, I would like to see it actually done. This is what it's going to look like, I think we've had too many, this is our plan on this property, and I would like, I personally, and I guess I'm gonna wait for a motion to be made, but I would like to see the actual plan. This is what it's gonna look like, this is what we're gonna do.
I can overlay landscaping onto the plan that was provided to show what that would be. From that west property line, from that last tree there up to the right-of-way line on McKinley there, and along the foundation landscaping in that area. I don't see any need for putting anything at the rear of the property at this point and creating a major, if this drags too long, we're going to lose a buyer too. So I don't want to lose a buyer on a commercial piece of property.
I think we're all sympathetic to that, but given I was kind of on the same track as you, DJ.
You do have the ability to table it to the
That's-
next meeting to
was-
request more information.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we table this, all 6 or the entire,
Just the petition of wood rental properties.
yeah, the petition of the wood rental property on McKinley Highway until, what's the date?
September 14th.
September 14th meeting, pending more clarity with regard to the type 2 landscaping. And also, I would like to see more clarity with regard to trying to recreate the crime actually as it happened. Some dates, right?
I would second that, Bob Hawley.
Is that convoluted enough?
I mean, is there any other information any of you would like, so that it can be on the floor, so the petitioner knows what to bring?
So I guess my thing is are we needing or wanting type 2 landscaping around the entire property? Is that why you were asking for the rear, Abby?
Yeah, I want to look and see what they applied for. Well, I know what they applied for. What I was advocating for, in light of the rear setback not being met, having some landscaping back there. I think Terry understood where I was going with that and is saying.
Okay, now, it's clear now what you're saying. right there.
Sorry.
So let me do an evaluation back in the back and see, without getting major equipment out there and disturbing retention areas, can, a row of arborvitaes be placed along between the asphalt and the fence back there?
Because normally, Kylie, could you get to the zoning map for me? I mean, you all see variances all the time for type 2 landscaping. When we have abutting a residential use or district, commercial or industrial zones, we have type 2. So here we have a situation where we don't have landscaping and we have a reduced setback, so it's like a double whammy, right? Double
Well,
whammy.
and I think, I would argue that there's culpability here too. I personally did not go out to this one. And I clearly need to go out there and camp out for a minute.
I was
So,
just gonna
There's a
suggest,
motion.
I've driven by that property 100 times. I know exactly where it's at, but I'm gonna drive out and I'm gonna look at it and study it so I know better what I'm talking about.
I was there the first time and I was there the second time,
Right.
and so. Okay, we had a motion to table with some extra clarification on multiple. Do I need to reiterate what we wanted?
I think that'd be a good idea. It does not have to be a roll call vote, though.
Yeah, it's just an all in favor, right. So we need, we're tabling because we need clarity on type 2 landscaping, placement of type 2 landscaping, the building permit dates or clarification of when said buildings were built or who the builder was, or C of Os. And, am I missing something else? I had
You guys?
5, and I'm missing 1.
You had also mentioned clarity on the property transfer history and the ongoing violation.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the other violation is, so if that needs to be addressed next month, we can do that also.
Yes, that's important.
Anybody else have anything?
Did you get Terry evaluating if there's possibility for landscaping in the rear?
Along that south property line, yes.
Okay.
And I would like to see an actual map of what this is going to look like.
Okay,
So, anybody else have anything? Okay, so there was a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
We are tabled till next month. Thank you.
Can I make a motion on the finding of the facts?
There was a change to the findings of the facts. Was this the new one, Shelley?
There was changing to the minutes.
Or to the minutes? I'm sorry. Okay.
I have the revised minutes for you.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the finding of the facts for the Wednesday, July 13th, 2022 meeting.
Second, Lance Roush.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Minutes. Is there just one?
So Donnie is our quality control for the minutes.
Yeah, he is.
Thank you, Donnie.
Sorry.
But I'm not sorry.
Did you get a promotion?
So the two that voted against approval of the Little Flower petition last month were accidentally entered into FileMaker as the motion in the second. Donnie and Bob, I think you both were denial, or you voted
No,
against?
No, it was
DJ
me.
and I were in denial, but
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I voted, yeah.
So those, Shelley went back and listened to the minutes and corrected it, and, oh, and Brandy also has a revision to the minutes.
The lawyer that was representing the petitioner was Jim Masters, not Bob Masters. You had it right in most places, but it was wrong on page 14.
I'm sorry, one more time?
The lawyer representing the petitioner was James Masters, not Robert Masters. You had Robert on page 14. I imagine he might be, I don't know, he might be flattered he got mixed up with his son. I don't know.
Little Jimmy.
So Brandy, we'd be looking for a motion to approve as.
As amended.
As amended.
As amended.
Yep.
Yep. So I'm looking for a motion to approve as amended the minutes for July 13th, 2022.
I'll make a motion approve the minutes as amended for, I think you said.
Second that motion.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Abby?
Other business? So, I know you all look worried that Sean's not here, like we're gonna lose Sean now, and he's on vacation. He offered to zoom in from New Orleans, but we said that was probably not the best idea.
It's a good thing he didn't.
Right, it's a better looking version, so we're all right.
We do have Carl here with us, Carl Brown Grimm. He was the ghostwriter of one of our petitions this month, but before he took a stab at presenting to you all, just wanted to absorb it and soak it in. But don't worry, he's been assigned cases for next month, and will be presenting to you all in September.
Okay. Anybody else got anything? No? Just need one more motion.
I'll make a motion, Bob Hawley, that we adjourn.
Second, Lance Roush.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good. Have a good rest of your week.
Oh, my gosh.